My parents took my sister on a vacation as a graduation gift and left me at home. While they were away, I won $1 million in the lottery. When they came back, my sister had a meltdown, demanding half of my winnings. My dad threatened to cut me out of his will if I don't give her a portion of the money. Now I'm stuck between family pressure and keeping the money I rightfully won. So, this has been the wildest week of my life, and honestly, I'm still trying to process everything. I, 24 male, grew up with my younger sister, Sarah, 18 female. She was always the golden child, while I was just there. It wasn't anything too crazy growing up. She got a bit more attention and special treatment, but nothing I couldn't brush off. At least, until this past week. Sarah recently graduated from high school, and as a graduation gift, my parents took her on this incredible 2-week vacation to Europe. Meanwhile, I got, well, nothing. Not that I was expecting anything huge, but when they didn't even offer for me to come along, it stung. I mean, I've been out of college for 2 years, working a job I don't love just to pay the bills, and all I get is a pat on the back while they treat Sarah like a queen. So there I was, stuck at home alone for 2 weeks while they were off living it up in Paris, Rome, and God knows where else. But life has a funny way of balancing things out, I guess. Because while they were gone, I decided to buy a lottery ticket for fun, just to change up my mundane routine. I wasn't expecting anything to come of it. But the next day, I checked the numbers, and I hit the jackpot. I won $1 million. I couldn't believe it. I double-checked the numbers, then triple-checked. I even took the ticket to the store to confirm it. And yeah, it was real. I was officially a millionaire. At first, I didn't tell anyone. I needed time to think about what to do next. My plan was to meet with a financial advisor, keep things low-key, and figure out the smartest way to handle this life-changing money. But then my parents and Sarah came back from their vacation, all tan and happy. They barely asked how I was or what I'd been up to. It was just the usual. Sarah bragging about all the amazing sights she'd seen, my mom gushing over her, and my dad nodding along, talking about how proud they were of her. I figured I might as well break the news, since it was bound to come out eventually. So, at dinner, I casually mentioned, "By the way, I won the lottery while you guys were away." At first, they laughed, thinking I was joking. But when I pulled out the confirmation and showed them my bank account, their faces went white. My dad's fork clattered to his plate, and Sarah just stared at me like I'd stolen her thunder. My mom started asking all these rapid-fire questions. How much did you win? What are you going to do with it? Are you going to buy a house? That's when Sarah snapped. She started yelling, asking how it was fair that I, of all people, had won. I just graduated, and you win $1 million? What kind of joke is this? She completely melted down, sobbing about how life was unfair, how it should have been her. And then came the real kicker. Through her tears, she said, "You're my brother. You owe me. You should give me half the money. I'm your only sister. You can't just keep it all to yourself." I was shocked. I mean, it wasn't like I was gloating or throwing it in her face. I hadn't even decided what to do with the money yet, and here she was, demanding half. I told her I'd think about helping her out with some stuff, but I wasn't just going to hand over half of my winnings. That's when my parents got involved. My mom tried to reason with me, saying that family comes first and that I should support my sister. But my dad, he didn't ask. He threatened me. "You either give your sister a good portion of that money," he said, "or I'll make sure you're written out of my will. Don't think for a second that you'll see a dime of my inheritance if you don't take care of your family." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I've been working my butt off for years, scraping by, while they've been throwing money at Sarah for everything. And now, because I got lucky and won the lottery, they were demanding that I give it away or face being cut off. I told them flat out, I'm not giving her half. I'll help her out with some things, but this is my money. I won it, not her. Sarah stormed out of the room, crying, and my dad just shook his head like I'd betrayed him. He hasn't spoken to me since that night, and my mom keeps texting me, trying to guilt-trip me, saying, "You're tearing this family apart." Meanwhile, Sarah's been posting passive-aggressive things on social media about how some people don't know how to share, and money changes people. It's honestly ridiculous. I do care about my family, and I don't mind helping them out. But to have them turn on me like this, threatening me over money I won by chance? It's unreal. I've been looking into getting legal advice because part of me is worried they might try to take it from me or force me to give in somehow. I never thought I'd be in this position, but here I am. So, what do I do? Should I give in and give Sarah some of the money to keep the peace, or should I stand my ground? How do I deal with my parents' threats and my sister's meltdown without completely destroying our already fragile family dynamic? It's been a week since my family found out about my lottery win and things have only gotten worse. If I thought my sister's meltdown and my dad's threats were bad before, I clearly had no idea how far they were willing to go. I wish I could say I was surprised, but now I feel like I'm trapped in some twisted soap opera and it's tearing me apart. After the confrontation at dinner, I decided to distance myself from my family for a few days. I needed space to think, to figure out what the hell I was going to do. I blocked my parents and my sister on social media and muted their texts, hoping they'd cool off after some time to reflect. I was wrong. It started with Sarah. She showed up at my apartment unannounced, pounding on the door like the building was on fire. I didn't want to let her in, but I knew she wasn't leaving until I did. When I opened the door, she looked like she hadn't slept. Her eyes were puffy from crying, and she launched into a rant about how I was ruining her life. She said she needed that money more than I did because she was just starting out and had so many opportunities in front of her. She talked about college, buying a car, studying abroad, basically everything she felt she was entitled to now that I had the means to give it to her. I stood my ground. I told her that, while I understood where she was coming from, I wasn't just going to hand over a chunk of my winnings because she felt like she deserved it. That's when she hit me with the guilt. You know, Mom and Dad did so much for you when you were younger, she said. They helped you through college, paid for your first car, and this is how you repay them? You're turning your back on them, but she didn't know that at that time I had to pay 80% money for that car. They just helped me with my car EMI for a couple months. She kept pushing, reminding me that I was supposed to be her big brother, that we were family, and that I should want to help her. I told her I was willing to help, maybe cover some of her college expenses, but she wasn't satisfied with that. She wanted half, or at least something close to it. She even had the audacity to say, "You don't even need all that money. What are you going to do with it? You're single, you don't have kids, and you live in a crappy apartment. You're just being selfish." I couldn't take it anymore. I told her to leave. That's when things got really bad. Sarah threw her arms up in frustration and yelled, "You're dead to me. You hear me? Dead. I don't have a brother anymore." She stormed out of my apartment, slamming the door so hard it rattled the walls. The next day, my mom showed up acting like the mediator. She started off calm, saying she just wanted to talk and find a way to heal the family. But her true intentions quickly came out. She said she'd spoken to my dad, and they both felt that I needed to do the right thing by helping out Sarah. My dad, still furious, refused to come himself, but sent Mom to negotiate. The negotiation was more like an ultimatum. My mom said if I didn't give a significant portion of the money to Sarah, they'd be forced to take drastic measures. I asked her what that meant, and she replied, "You know your father. He's serious about the inheritance. You'll be cut out of everything. We'll also have to reconsider our relationship moving forward." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own mother was threatening to cut ties with me unless I gave in to their demands. I told her flat out that I wasn't being unreasonable. I offered to help Sarah, but I wasn't going to just hand her a fortune because she felt entitled to it. Mom started crying, saying things like, "You're breaking my heart," and "How can you be so cold?" I told her I loved her, but I needed them to respect my decision. That's when she gave me the silent treatment. She left without saying another word, just tears in her eyes and disappointment written all over her face. Then, 2 days later, I got the worst news yet. My father had hired a lawyer. I got a letter delivered to my door, yes, an actual letter, telling me that my parents were seeking legal advice on how to protect Sarah's interests. Apparently, they're trying to find some loophole or legal way to claim a portion of my lottery winnings on her behalf. I didn't think that was even possible, but I guess when people get desperate, they'll try anything. Now I'm terrified. I haven't even gotten the money yet. It's still being processed through the Lottery Commission, but my own family is actively trying to take it from me before I even see a cent. I've contacted a lawyer of my own, and they said it's unlikely my parents have any real legal grounds to claim my winnings. But the fact that they're going to these lengths, it's unreal. My dad still hasn't spoken to me directly. Everything's been through my mom or these legal threats. He hasn't called, hasn't tried to meet up, just these cold, heartless ultimatums. I've always had a complicated relationship with my dad, but I never thought he'd do something like this. I never thought he'd choose money over his own son. As for Sarah, she's gone completely off the rails. I've been hearing from mutual friends and family members that she's telling everyone I stole the money from her. She's acting like I won the lottery by robbing her somehow. People are starting to take sides, and I'm getting flooded with messages from cousins and aunts, some telling me I'm selfish, others saying they understand my position but begging me to make peace with Sarah. It's chaos. I feel like I'm losing my mind. My own family has turned against me over something that should have been a life-changing blessing. I've been waking up every day in a cold sweat, wondering what they'll do next. And you know what the craziest part is? I'd always thought that when you win a lottery, it's supposed to change your life for the better. But right now, it feels like it's destroying everything I've ever known. So I'm at a crossroads. Do I give in to their demands just to get my family back, or do I stand my ground and risk losing them forever? And how do I even begin to repair this damage? Because I'm starting to think there might not be any way back from this. Final update. It's been 3 months since I won the lottery, and I never thought things would spiral the way they have. My family's greed has torn us apart, and at this point I don't know if there's any way to fix it. I wanted to believe that time would heal, that my parents and sister would come to their senses. But now I realize some things can't be undone. After my parents threatened me with legal action, I decided enough was enough. I couldn't live in fear of them trying to steal my money, so I did the one thing I never thought I'd do. I went no contact with my family. It wasn't an easy decision, but my mental health was suffering, and I couldn't keep living under the constant pressure of their threats and manipulation. But cutting them off didn't stop the drama. A week after I stopped responding to their messages, I got a notification from my lawyer. My parents had actually filed a lawsuit against me. They were trying to claim that, because I was living at home when I bought the lottery ticket, the winnings should be considered family property. I couldn't believe they were going this far. My own parents, suing me like I was some stranger off the street. The lawsuit was weak at best, and my lawyer assured me it wouldn't hold up in court. Still, the fact that they were willing to drag me through this legal nightmare was heartbreaking. I had to fight my own family in court, something I never thought would happen in a million years. The legal process dragged on for weeks, during which time I didn't hear a word from my dad or mom directly. Every communication was through their lawyer. It was like they had turned into completely different people. During the trial, Sarah showed up. She looked worse than I had ever seen her, disheveled, tired, clearly not handling the stress well. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. She didn't say a word to me. She just sat next to my parents, shooting me these pitiful, desperate looks as if to say, "Look what you're doing to us." As if this was all my fault. When the judge finally ruled in my favor, it was a huge relief. The lawsuit was dismissed, and they got nothing. I thought that might be the end of it, that maybe they'd finally realize how ridiculous they were being and let it go. But I underestimated just how deep their entitlement ran. The very next day, Sarah showed up at my apartment again, this time alone. I could see she was at her breaking point, and to be honest, I wasn't sure what to expect. She didn't come in guns blazing like last time. She didn't scream or cry. Instead, she sat on my couch and looked at me with hollow eyes. "I can't believe you let it get this far," she said quietly. I was stunned. Me? Let it get this far? I had been defending myself this entire time. But before I could respond, she launched into a sob story about how hard things had been for her since the lawsuit. She claimed she was struggling with anxiety and depression, that she couldn't even think about her future anymore because all she could focus on was the fact that I had ruined her life by not giving her the money. "I'm your only sister," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm blood. How can you do this to me? How can you be so heartless?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She still saw herself as the victim. I told her flat out that I wasn't responsible for her mental health and that I had already offered to help her multiple times. Offers she'd refused because they weren't good enough for her. I said that while I cared about her, I wasn't going to be manipulated into giving her money she didn't deserve. That's when she dropped the bomb. "If you don't help me," she said, her voice shaking with desperation, "I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you are. I'll tell everyone you abandoned your family, that you let your parents suffer. I'll ruin your reputation." It felt like a punch to the gut. My own sister was blackmailing me. She wasn't asking for help, she was threatening me. I realized then that this wasn't about family or fairness. This was pure greed. Sarah wanted to destroy me if she couldn't have what she thought was hers. I stood up, looked her dead in the eye and said, "Do what you want. I'm done." She left in a rage, and I haven't seen her since. But I knew the storm was far from over. Over the next few weeks, rumors started spreading among extended family and friends. Suddenly, I was the villain of the story. Sarah had been busy telling everyone I'd abandoned my parents, that I was hoarding my money while they struggled. My phone was blowing up with angry texts and calls from relatives who had no idea what was really going on. My parents even made public posts on Facebook, talking about how they couldn't believe their own son would treat his family this way. It was beyond painful to read. But I stood my ground. I wasn't going to be bullied into submission no matter how hard they tried to smear me. I knew the truth, and the people who mattered in my life knew the truth too. I was finally starting to see that my family wasn't just toxic, they were dangerous to my well-being. Their greed had consumed them completely, and I had to let go no matter how much it hurt. As for my father's inheritance, he made good on his threat. I found out through a cousin that he officially cut me out of the will. At this point, it didn't even matter. I didn't want anything from him or from them anymore. I was done. I've moved to a new apartment since then in a different city far away from the chaos. I'm focusing on rebuilding my life, getting therapy, and using my lottery winnings to invest in a future that I control. It's been painful. Losing my family is something I never thought I'd have to go through, but I've come to realize that sometimes you have to walk away from the people who hurt you the most, even if they share your blood. I still don't know if Sarah, my mom, or my dad will ever realize what they've done or if they'll spend the rest of their lives believing I'm the villain of this story. But at this point, I've stopped caring about what they think. Family is important, yes. But respect, trust, and love go both ways. And if those things aren't there, then what's the point? In the end, I learned the hard way that not all relationships can be saved, and sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away and build a new life, one where you choose who's in your corner. And honestly, I'm finally at peace.